Hi everyone, welcome back to the Always Believer. I'm Ariadna, as you already know, of course. And today we start off again with a very special guest of the month. It's May 31st, of course, and today's special guest is very dear to my heart. I'm so excited to have her here. I've read her book. I'm still reading her book because it's like with a journal in hand,
That's right.
and which we'll definitely get into. We have the beautiful, the wonderful, the amazing new mama, basically, Christine Gutierrez.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So before we dive into your book and what you're all about and that spirituality and just like that hits me in all the feels, can you tell our beautiful team flyer a little bit about you?
Yeah. So I am a Latina woman. I was born and raised in Bushwick and then in Queens in New York. So I'm New Yorican. My family's background is from Puerto Rico. And I grew up in a home with a lot of love and also abuse. And many of us can relate to that. And I talk about that.
Preach.
Yeah, right. Like I talk about that in my book, I'm Diosa. And, a lot of it is this family patterns that we pass down and we're like learning to untangle with each generation. Hopefully that's the goal. So I always felt like I was a very intuitive, spiritual, sensitive child. And I always wanted to help make suffering go away. So that inner call to heal, to help, was there from very early on. And then coupled with my experience and my own life experience, having gone through painful experiences of, trauma, of abuse, I knew that it was needed. And now that I had had my own experience, as well as that like childhood kind of calling since I was young to serve, to heal, to help, I really followed that path of listening to that inner call to be a healer, to be a therapist, to be a space holder, to lead women's circles, to do retreats, to write this book. So really, I feel like that was one of the gifts of in my life, has been that I've always had this inner knowing that this is what I was meant to do, that it chose me, I didn't choose it.
I adore that response and that way of living life. I mean, if you know anything about me, you know I'm all about that spirituality, that inner alignment, that do things that really just make you happy and full of joy. And that's one of the main reasons why I started the Always Believer way back when it was just a blog. I start sharing my story of that abuse of growing up with,
Yeah.
a lot of complications all throughout my teenagehood and adulthood and, just growing up way too fast. And somewhere along the line, just aligning, not only keeping that inner child alive, but also breaking those generational traumas and at the same time having that healing space because I felt like super duper alone and I knew that I wasn't super duper alone. I'm like, if we
Yeah.
can just help one person to be like, yo, I've been there, I've done it, you can come out of the other side. That's the sex space. So when I met you through, of course, online, because we follow a lot of the same people, we have a lot of the same common friends, of course, here and there. And I was just like so like enchanted by your book in the best kind of way because it's excuse my voice. It's I'm Diosa, a journey to healing deep, loving yourself and coming back home to your soul. And I just it spoke so much to me and I've always recommended. I'm an avid reader and this is one of the key books I always tell my followers and my friends and clients and anything else I can get my hands on to share. So thank you so much, without a doubt.
Yeah, we're not
um
alone. And I love that you said that because it's really important for us to, first of all, a lot of times we create what we most need, right? Like, so you created this platform for yourself to share your story and to own your story and to alchemize and learn through your story and not let the story kind of consume you, but let it be part of your experience and making you who you are, right? Because we are a culmination of all the things that have happened to us, and we learn from them. And I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but if it does, or if anything does happen to us, we know that we can work through it and thrive through it. And so you doing this podcast, you doing your blog, me doing this book, doing this work, it helps us heal, but it also gives other people the opportunity to know and see through our stories that they're not alone. And that's why I love this work so much, because it's really about, you know, probably the most important feeling that I wanted to give people in the book was, you're not alone. Like, we're doing this together. You're not alone. You're not too fucked up, too messed up, too wounded. Like, we get you, we love you, and it's possible to heal.
That's exactly it. And you're absolutely right. Like the way that we started these platforms and this way of life, and just that message, the overall message that you can do this and you got this. And it's a feeling of unity. I mean, I'm always all about the community, because people, like, every chance I get to, I talk to a new follower or a new online friend or whatever, like, we're all following that path. And I'm like, we're here to like raise each other up, because it's exactly what the world needs. I feel like, especially not only in 2020, but like throughout the whole quarantine and pandemic going on, like we've awakened even more. And I feel like that kind of message needs to be even stronger. And the fact that you put a whole book out there, and the fact that we have more resources and more tools, it just makes it even sweeter. And going back to your book, like we're going to start talking about it, of course, a little bit more in depth. I read it, and I love devouring books to the extent of like making sure that I understand, but then I go back to books like yours with a journal in hand and write. I mean, you already also like give us that kind of tool. You also like within your book you give us questions and stuff like that, which is really, really, really important, because a lot of people, this doesn't come naturally. So it's
Yeah,
that like boost to like, hey, this is a question. Get a piece of paper and a pen, write what you're feeling, and let's walk through this together. And
absolutely.
that's what your book is, without a doubt. So my first question, of course, which I mean, it's a very common one, of course, but also because it's part of my name. What inspired you to name your book I Am Diosa?
Yeah, so it actually wasn't that easy for me to arrive at that title, even though it would seem it would be, because I had already been, prior to doing this book, been doing this work for over 10 years, leading Diosa retreats, doing a Diosa mastermind, having a brand called I Am Diosa. So Diosa community, right? Like, you couldn't be more Diosa out. And yet, when I was in this process of writing the book, because it was a different kind of like world and mindset, I when we sold the book, because I got the book deal with a traditional publishing house, with a book agent and the whole nine. So you write a book proposal, you get the agent, and they sell that idea and see if anyone will buy it. And so when we sold the book idea, the book proposal was called The Soul Call, right? It was not called I Am Diosa. And I talk about the soul call. I talk about the soul a lot in the book, but that was the original title that sold. Now, as I started writing the book, as I started talking to my husband, my best friends, my cousin, my community of diosas, my agent, the publishing house, even, it had been brought up like, should I name it I Am Diosa? And I had so much resistance. And partially, a lot of that was because of, I think, just like this colonized version of spirituality, and me being very scared and nervous, that people weren't going to understand it, that I was going to isolate people, that I was going to marginalize people, that the white girls that went through trauma that follow my book, or my Latina girls that don't speak Spanish, or my Black girls, or Indian, East Asian that don't speak Spanish, that they're going to see the title and be like, what the heck does Diosa mean? So it took a lot of like this kind of spiritual process of going through these questions and really asking my soul, what should the book be? And it took me until the end of writing the book to really name it and own it. So for the whole time that I had the book, it was just the working title. It wasn't the actual title that it is now. And finally, I took the leap of faith, and I felt like, you know what? Anyone that's meant to read this book is going to read those words, and the subtitle, A Journey to Healing Deep, Loving Yourself and Coming Back Home to Soul, couldn't be more clear. And the book cover itself, right, with the moon, and like has like, it's a warm kind of yellow and white and black, that I was very much so a part of developing that book cover on purpose, because it felt like a sacred manual. It looks beautiful. And I knew that even with that alone, if you just know the words I am, Diosa, Dios, a lot of people know that Dios is God, right? So it already had a lot of familiarity, and just saying the word brings power. And then the subtitle was strong enough that even if you didn't know what it meant, it made sense enough. So after all of that, I really sat with myself and I said, you know what? I'm going to name it. I'm going to own it. This is going to be I Am Diosa. And I'm so happy that I went with that decision because it feels so right. And it's like a affirmation, even without reading the book, just to say I am Diosa is so powerful. So it took a while, as sometimes good things do, right? And unpacking my own fears and my own things that were coming up for me, getting wise counsel from people I trusted, and then, checking with my soul and ultimately, owning it that this was the title of my book, I Am Diosa.
That's absolutely beautiful because you would think that it would come out so naturally, like you said at the beginning. And the reason it resonated with me, the word Diosa, because Ariadna in English, is a Greek goddess. So like I'm so used to hearing that word with myself or like resonating with that, that of course, even if I didn't know your backstory, even if it just randomly saw your book in the bookstore, I would be immediately called to it. But I completely understand how, once again, a book in hand, your subtitle, like anyone who doesn't know the word Diosa would definitely be like, oh, and then the cover is beautiful. I adore the cover. It's all about that balance of the sun and the
Yes.
moon, the dark and the
Yes.
light, and just like chills, literal chills, because this is what you said, and I adore that because I see it a lot. Like whatever's meant to be for you, it's for you. So
Yeah.
whatever's meant for like that book, like for them to pick it up at any bookstore or online or whatever, it's meant to be. So
That's
that's
right.
beautiful.
Yeah. And I had to work, just on a girl boss business note, or for any future authors, right? Like the book covers that they gave me were completely off brand and off my vibe. And like I was like, heck no. And I heard that happens a lot. It's very common. And so it was really important to me that I sat with my soul and I said, what do I want this to feel like? I want it to feel like a sacred manual. I want it to feel beautiful. I want people to be able to take photos of it and feel like this is gorgeous, not just like that it has content that they can enjoy, but that it's visibly and physically feels good. And so all of that was taken into consideration. And I'm grateful that I have a publishing house that was so loving, supportive, and just trusted me because, it is a great honor. And it was way overdue, right? For there to be more Latina voices in mainstream spiritual market, which was very uncommon at the time. And it's still changing, but they really respect my voice and my opinions, and that made all the difference in creating and choosing what was right for this, so that we could attract the right people that were meant to read this book.
That is so extremely important as well. My husband and me are and I whatever are avid readers without a doubt, and we try to go like to small shops as much as possible. And through COVID, blah 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 blah, precaution of course. And we go to the bookstores, and you see kind of all the covers kind of the same. So either a book has to like really speak to you, or you're kind of seeing the same kind of tone. And he's very observant and he's very like intuitive as much as I am, and he's like, how does this stand out? Because I love reading, I love writing, it's always one of my goals as well. And
Yeah.
your book is completely different from literally the moment go from literally the cover, and you can completely tell.
Yeah, and another thing I didn't want was my face on the cover. I didn't want it to be about me in that way. Like, yes, I do share my story, but the work stands in and of itself. And so a lot of self-help books previously were all with people's faces on the cover. And the only time I would ever have something of me there would be like if I was like, some poetic thing with like a shawl over my face or like feathers, something where you don't know it's me and it's more mystical and artsy, but not like the stereotypical like cheese face on the cover. That's not me. And so again, like being clear on your vision, just like with anything, is so important. So, but definitely if you feel the call to write the book, right, then eventually it'll come because yeah, you're meant to write it then.
Exactly. Oh, I love that piece of advice as well. To not only, of course, like follow your soul and sit with yourself. It's so important to just sit with yourself and understand what you need and what you really want, because it's the answer's all within you anyway. Like it's right there.
Oh yeah.
So, and in a world that we get caught up, no matter if you're a businesswoman or not, no matter if you're from a nurse to a cashier to anything else in between, we get so caught up in other people's opinions, or even if it's people we trust, you kind of have to like slow down and come within and be like, okay, this is the direction that I want to go to, and that's like the path I'm going to take, and
Yeah,
we'll
for
take it from
sure.
there.
Being able to decipher, what it is that's right for you. And sometimes that takes trial and error, that takes like you setting boundaries, it takes you, messing up and choosing what's not for you until you figure out what is for you. But eventually really strengthening that voice and repairing that connection to your intuition, to your soul voice, so that you can keep choosing things that are better for you.
Completely agree. So one of my favorite questions, because you talked a lot about being Latina, and of course I am too. I was born in Venezuela to a Venezuelan mom and an Ecuadorian dad, and then I was raised in the States, and then I moved to Europe, especially Spain. So like I'm literally from all over the place. I feel
Multicultural, yeah.
like exactly, and I'm still very proud of my Latin roots, even though if I didn't really live in South America or Latin America in general. They're still there. They're very common. I love to do my podcast as much as I can in English and in Spanish, and I'm always pushing these kind of conversations in Spanish. I really try. We have a bunch of astrologists, a bunch of spiritual people on the show this season, a lot more than before because of that message. So, all that being said and done, of course, how did your culture impact you as like you wrote the book?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I really I relate to being a Latina woman, right? And for me, that came with so much pride of being Puerto Rican and being specifically New Yorican, and growing up in New York and Bushwick, growing up as a Latina woman from Brooklyn, and owning what that meant, because there's the Puerto Rican side, but then there's the Brooklyn side, right? And the whole New Yorican culture is very different than the Puerto Rican culture here in Puerto Rico, where I now live. And so for me, I always knew that there was a cultural kind of confidence that I wanted to build. And I knew that in my family in particular, the aunts and uncles and the cousins, they're very disconnected from their Puerto Rican roots. And it was really sad. And I felt like, in a way, it was a lot of self-hatred, and a lot of like consuming white culture and feeling like if they did that, then they would be loved, worthy, seen. And I don't even think that they realize it. And so it was really sad to see. I saw a lot of painful things that, it's just like I don't relate to, right? And there was something inside of me that was always so proud and so grateful that I had these roots and I wanted to explore them deeper. And I had moved when I finished my master's. I think it was like 2010, 2011, around there. I came to Puerto Rico by myself and I lived here for 3 years. Then I would come back and forth nonstop from New York to Puerto Rico. And I knew eventually I would move here again. And now I'm here. I live here with my husband. And we, for me, it was also returning to learning even more about my culture and how that is part of such a big part of my medicine, my vibe, my heart, my warmth, my connection to spirit, how I can heal with my hands, with my touch, with my voice. And that comes from our family. My grandmothers have that in them. My mom has that in them. My grandparents have that in them, even my dad. And so really just connecting to those roots gave me that feeling of this is in our bloodline, right? Being a curandera, healer, spiritual, intuitive person is in our bloodline. And so that definitely impacted me in my spiritual journey, in my just journey as a human on earth. And then, of course, as an author and writing this book.
I really adore those kind of answers because you're so, I want to say proud precisely, but you're so present. That's the best word I can find, actually. You're so present with who you are and your roots. And much like you were saying, there's so many different ways that you can be not only Latin, of course, but just like if you're from another culture and then you grew up somewhere else, it's still something that you're, of course, multicultural, but you don't know where to stand.
Yes.
And it's so important, at least it was to me, for example, to make sure that I keep those kind of parts present
Oh, yeah.
because we are very spiritual as well, like you were saying, because I know the power that we have. We know that the magic that we're able to hold and intentions and things like that. So it's something so important, and it also makes you equally as vulnerable, but also equally as powerful.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people struggle with owning their identity in many different ways, right? Whether it's like their cultural identity, their entrepreneurial identity, their sexual identity. And so being able to give ourselves permission to say, I am all these things, right? Like you are a little bit of all those things, and understanding that that's what makes you special, right? And that there's not one that's better or worse, right? No matter what. And really coming to a space where you can say, what is it that I can learn from each of these parts of me, right? What are some things that really stand out that I really want to incorporate, right? Where does my New Yorker come through? Where does my Brooklyn come through? Where does my Boricua come through? Where does my my therapist come through, my shaman part come through? And really just allowing ourselves to be multidimensional, multicultural, and choosing whatever feels right for us.
Exactly, completely and exactly. Um, you also talk about being a spiritual coach as well.
Mm-hmm.
So walk us a little bit on what you do. What does that, consist of? So a lot of people who are, because this is kind of still brand new to many eyes and ears, of course, to be a spiritual coach.
Yeah, so I am clinically trained as a therapist, but I don't use that cap, as I say, in my work very frequently. What I do is that I have now created a community, a business, right, a company that provides services based on emotional empowerment, um, you know, uh, women's empowerment. We do retreats, we do workshops, we do mentorship, and a whole bunch of other things that have to do with helping people to release pain, own their worth, and also live their dreams, whether that's, developing a healthier relationship or birthing their soul business to the world. So for me, I didn't know what title I would use, right? Because it really was a feeling. And so a lot of times we're trying to fit into a box, but we don't fit in a box. And so I had to create my own world. And so I did the path of becoming a licensed therapist because I knew that that would help me. And then I studied all of these like different kinds of healing modalities: tantra, meditation, breath work, mindfulness, right? Yoga, women's circles, priestess work, diosa work, right? Energy work. And I really combined it and made it my own, right? I studied with many different teachers that helped me on my journey to being able to remember this wisdom that was already with me, including just the intuitive wisdom that went beyond even like the training, just the stuff that was born with me, right? Just for me, I guess whatever, it was like my spiritual download. I already had that inside of me. But I started doing the work that felt good for me, and the title never really mattered to me. So I switch it up all the time. I tell people, yeah, I'm a licensed therapist, I'm a healer, I'm a space holder, I'm a entrepreneur, I'm a women's empowerment mentor, right? Like I change it all the time because what really matters to me is the work, and the work is clear, right? And so really what in anything I do, I'm helping people to hold space for their feelings, their pain, their shame, their trauma, and helping to empower them to believe they're worthy and to feel divine, to feel that they're connected, to help them remember their wisdom. And I do this in two forms mostly now. One path is the path of like healing and building your self-esteem, releasing toxic patterns, relationships, etc. And then also the business path, which is for mostly women of color, Latina women that want to birth their businesses and make money, which I'm very passionate about because financial freedom in being in alignment with our soul is so important. So that's something that's new-ish, but not. I've been doing it again for years now, and I love it so much. So those are the kind of two paths in my business right now.
That's absolutely gorgeous because once again, it's like much like your book cover, it's that balance and having, of course, the best of both worlds and just being sure that, everything that you do, of course, aligns with yourself, but that people, I completely agree with you. Label's just the label. Like, even if it's, we're talking about, mother daughter to like boss, employee, whatever, it's a label. And same goes with like having these boxes, because much like you, a lot of people, like when they ask me what I do, and I'm like, well, I wear many hats, I'm an
Yes.
entrepreneur, I'm also a podcast host, I'm a writer, I'm an energy healer, like I've had clients before that were all about that and like bettering their lives and things like that. So it's kind of like the work. The work
That's
is
right.
there and the work is clear. And I think that's so, so important. And the second part of it, of course, is like those businesses. I adore what I do as well because I'm able to promote people like you who help others, people in this particular case, to make sure they get that financial freedom, because we're all able to live a life that we adore and enjoy. We're not meant to do that 9 to 5 hustle and bustle and,
Yeah.
you know,
Unless that's aligned with your soul and you love that
exactly.
structure, then no, right? And so it's like if you dig it, then yes. There's so many people that I know that love it. Great. As long as you're doing what you love, as long as you're doing something that, even if you don't love, maybe just love the structure of having the money and then you do something you love on the side. There's so many ways to do it, but just make sure that you're doing something that gives you life energy, right? And that's not robbing you and depleting you constantly, because we deserve to live well, especially if we've gone through a lot of shit in our life.
Preach. Freaking preach. Um, so what can our readers expect from your book?
I
What
would
is
say
your
you can expect to go on a deep journey of introspection, of being able to look at the shadows that are in your life, the dark corners, the experiences in your childhood that have hurt you, that have impacted you, and then to help you connect the dots to where those patterns are living in you now and how they're showing up in your self-sabotage or in blocking you from stepping into your power or your relationships, and then ultimately giving you tools to be able to navigate what do you do when those things come up. How do you repair the connection to your intuition? How do you start bringing this awareness so you can start making changes so that you can choose more soul aligned actions versus those unhealthy patterns that are just meant to destroy you. So really it is a manual, as a guidebook. I consider it like my Diosa retreat, which is like my deep healing spiritual retreat in a book. And it's the kind of thing that you do with a journal by your side, and maybe even bring it to your therapist's office and do the work in therapy, because it's not an easy book, but it's an impactful book that I believe can help you to really make changes. And again, doing so through the perspective as a Latina woman and as someone who's gone through it too, knowing that there's thousands upon thousands of other women around the world going through this with you and doing the work with you. So you can expect to feel cocooned in that love as well as you do the work.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love how you set that cocooned into that love, of course, and just turn into that beautiful sunshine kind of butterfly that we all are, of course. I love that you mentioned that you also take it to your therapist, because like I said, like this is kind of the kind of book, and every time I recommend it to somebody, it's like you need, like, this is not to take lightly. Like you cannot read it like a chapter and then another chapter, because it's not that kind of books. Like take it all in, embrace it for what it is, and talk to yourself and go back to it and take those notes. And once again, I'm very intuitive, so I love, my oracle readings and my tarot readings for myself and astrology, and I do a monthly astrology as well. So like it kind of all aligns to that kind of therapy and then some. Do
Oh
you
yeah.
recommend this book to a younger audience? Like if moms are listening right now and be like, oh, I have a teenage daughter or something or sort.
Yeah, so my predominant audience are women of color, mostly Latina women, women of color. Obviously, this book is for anyone that finds themselves attracted to it, and I mentioned that in the book. But my predominant audience is usually people in their 20s to early 50s. But I believe that especially for anyone over the age that they are already experiencing these kinds of issues with dating drama, or having sex, or being exposed to situations and patterns that already are showing signs of self-destruction, then I would say yes. But it really is dependent on that, because for example, my goddaughter who's 14, I don't think that this would be appropriate for her specifically, because there is content of abuse and sexuality that I think she's capable of reading. It's not that she's not capable of knowing. She knows a lot, but I don't think that unless you're working through it with a therapist or with someone, that it's the kind of thing to do for someone that young. But definitely young teens, like, 17, 18, 19, 20 for sure. So really it's like at the discretion of the parent. I always say that, I'm pregnant now. I'm going to be a mom to a little girl. And, I think it's a process, and I think that you have to know who your child is, what they're capable of, what they need. And they know far more than we think. And so educating them early on is so important. There should be no taboo topics. Sexuality can be discussed from an early age in an age appropriate way. And so I think they see so much on TV too. So, best as a parent, but it has a wide range. And I know that a lot of couples do it, but they listen to the audio and the woman's going through it. And like, it's amazing. It's amazing to see who resonates with it. And if you vibe with it, then it's for you.
Exactly. If you vibe for it, like with like everything else in life, if you vibe
That's
with
right.
it, it's definitely for you.
That's it.
I adore that. One of my biggest questions I have for you, when did your spiritual self start? Like, were you a little kid and you were always very curious, or what was all that about? And you're part from your ancestors, of course, because we do come from a line of healers.
Yeah, for sure. When I was little, like I was always spiritual and I was always connected, and I had psychic dreams and I had a little baby altar. Like I always was curious about spirit, and just I knew that there was more. I knew and I felt it. And so for me it was just like second nature. I felt, that's where my Instagram name came from, Cosmic Christine, because I felt connected to this like cosmic realm of just spirituality and God or source. And I just wanted to know more. I didn't like the dogma of it because I was raised Catholic, and I never resonated with that. Actually, I was always very outspoken. Even in school, I would get in trouble all the time because I didn't agree. I was like, oh, Jesus is cool. I love him. But if someone's born in another country and they have another way of serving God, as long as they're not doing harm, I was okay with that as a kid. And so, for me, definitely it was just like a natural thing that I just kept on following. And it's never gone away. And it's morphed and it's changed and it's transformed, but it's always been that I believe that there's another world that's the spirit world.
I definitely resonate with you because mine also started since I was a kid. I mean, I did not grow up in a Catholic house. I kind of the opposite. My mom is very spiritual, so I think that's definitely where it started, and we're very open to talk about angels and our guides. Oh, and there goes the dogs. Excuse me.
It's okay. Yeah.
The sounds of life. I feel like the Zoom life that we all live in, that we're all home.
Oh yeah. That's
um,
beautiful that your mom was spiritual and that you had that too.
exactly, completely and utterly. And that's definitely helped me like all the way to like who I am today and forming all this. And I feel like the older I come, it's like it's more and more and more and more aligned. And I'm sure it is the exact same thing for you. Like it really comes to like, oh, it was right there all along. you know?
Oh yeah.
And and the moment that you were just like, you start breaking those generational traumas. I mean, I say that a lot, especially to like when I'm hanging out with friends and talking to them. Like we talk about this subject a lot, but I'm like, it's so darn important so we can better ourselves as a human being. But also when we do have kids, much like you, like we're able to bring them into a world that's full of more love and more acceptance and
That's
more
right.
just, your inner power and following that light. I do see the difference. I do see there's a difference in society, especially with the younger kids, and I adore that a lot. I'm sure you
Yeah,
see that with your goddaughter.
it's so important, and I do, and I think it's like we're doing the work and we're not going to be perfect at it, but we can get better and better. And like I love this philosophy of just like honest parenting, right? When you have moments, for all the parents out there that are already parents, when you have moments where you make a mistake, you can just correct it and say, I'm so sorry that I spoke that way. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do. Validating a kid's experience, um, instead of trying to be perfect parent, being an honest parent and being a compassionate, vulnerable parent, I think is the most important. And of course, getting your own help so that you can have support, right? Because so many people didn't have support. And I think that that was a big part of it, is like being able to have support so that we can love ourselves better, heal, and prayfully show up better to creating different dynamics in our life. And I know I still struggle. I know that, I'm not perfect, but I also know that I'm so willing. And I think that that's the most important thing, is like, are you willing to keep doing the work? Are you willing to be honest? Are you willing to look at the areas where you're not the best in? Are you willing to keep growing so that we can create a new lineage that has more love, like you said, more understanding, and just better coping skills?
Completely. I feel like you attract the energy that's right next to you, of course. Like we've always keep saying, not only in this episode, but just in general, with, of course, your I'm Diosa, but also over here, they always believer. It's kind of like you attract that energy, and things are meant to be like in your path for a reason. And are you going to grow from that, or are you just going to like stay stuck? So, like, luckily enough, one of my favorite words, and I feel like for here, they always believer in Team Flyer, it's like evolve. It's
Yeah.
a constant, we're not the same person we were this morning. We're not the same person we were yesterday. And like you were saying, as long as like we what's it called, we say that we're wrong, or like we recognize where we, that we spoke too harshly or too quickly or whatever the
Yeah.
situation may have been. And then not only to your partner and to your people around you, but also when it comes to kids, you have to validate their feelings because they're human beings.
Yeah.
They're
Even
young.
with ourselves, if you make a mistake and you're mean to
Exactly.
yourself, forgive yourself and talk to yourself, and like, obviously, we know that repetition compulsion, which is a term that you use in psychology, which is like you're trying to repeat the original wound that you went through in an attempt to solve it. But if you don't have any new tools, you keep replaying the same thing over and over again. So it's like, it's not just attraction, right? It's also these deep layers of the way your subconscious and your brain works. It's science, right? And so it's like being able to go get that help, go get that support. That's why I'm such a big fan of therapy and doing these kinds of and healing work, both hand in hand, so that you can see, maybe I'm repeating patterns that don't need to be in my life anymore, but I don't know how to stop them because there's a loop that's being created from my nervous system based on my trauma, and I need to unpack it so that I can stop those patterns. So that's something that I talk about a lot, where mainstream spirituality makes it seem like, okay, we're just attracting everything, but it's far more complex than that. And unless we're going to the root, then we're not going to know how we can stop those patterns from happening. And then we can apply spiritual principles as well, that I think just amplifies it. We don't have to choose, we can do both.
Exactly. I love the fact that you said that completely. Not only, like I said, not only towards others, but towards yourself, which is the most important thing, because the way that you treat yourself and the way that you love yourself is like, that's your number one boo. That's the one you're yourself, you're with
Absolutely.
yourself every single day. So you got to love yourself no matter situation and move towards that. And then, like you said, with the tools, you need the right kind of tools, because if not, we're going to hit that rock a million gazillion times. And they're like, why? I'm like, well, because you got to find a way to not even go around the rock, but literally just like smash the rock and heal
Yeah.
that wound. That, like, that's why it's there, for to like remind you, like, this is
Oh, yeah.
something that's hurting you. Let's find a way for you to have the power to smash that rock. And that's definitely therapy. I'm pro therapy and pro talking to somebody, and it helps so much. And even if you don't have the most traumatic life, and that's obviously a best blessing, you're still a human being in this world. You also just went through a pandemic. It doesn't matter if you're like, oh my God, I have the most loving parents and a stable childhood. Great. But you're also a human. You can like just go talk to somebody. Like, you must have feelings like everyone
That's right.
else.
That's right. Like, we all can use some support.
Exactly. Because usually we do talk a lot of for people who pass that drama, because, obviously so. But even if you haven't, your feelings are still very, very valid. Um, Oh goodness, I love this conversation, and this is definitely what I'm all about. And this is just like kind of a girlfriend on girlfriend like conversation, just
Yes.
vibe. Definitely I adore it. Well, we're gonna start to wrap things up, of course, but I have a couple more questions for you to say at least. One of them is for sure, since we're still talking a little bit more about the book. What is your overall message that you want to tell to your audience, to our audience, to the whole world, saying, "Yo, this is who I am."
Yeah, I mean, more than who I am, what I would want to leave with people is to say, you deserve to heal, and you deserve to give yourself that life that you want. And that although it might be more challenging for those that have gone through more things, that it makes you even more attuned in a certain way to the magic of the world. And I believe that, most times, a lot of the times, when we've gone through so many things, we have the capacity to feel so much more, and take advantage of that. Like, be able to tap into like what gifts you've gotten from that. And I always tell people, like, the more shit you've gone through, right, you better believe that you make it your duty to live even more magical. Because I don't want us to think that we just survive. I want us to thrive. I want us to know that I don't want to just be in survival mode. I don't want to just get into, why do this healing work if you're not going to be then even happier and healthier and more abundant and all those things. And for a long time, I was just doing enough work to be okay. And I felt some subconscious guilt to like thrive and be happy, because in a way I almost thought it was corny, because I was so connected to my suffering, to my pain, to my trauma, that I thought that was what made me real. What I realized, what made me real, was my vulnerability, not the fact that I was like still going through things. And so I really changed that for myself. And I like to remind people that we deserve to thrive. We deserve to be more chill. We deserve to have happy relationships. We deserve to live easy. We deserve to live better. And of course, life is still going to happen because it's life, but we deserve to overall live the life that we truly dream.
That's one of the best messages, without doubt. You made me teary-eyed, which is not uncommon in me by any means, but it is something that resonates with me time and time again, because I was in survival mode slash I feel like sometimes I still am for our living situation and many things in between that. But I was in it for a really, really long time, thinking that was it, thinking that's like what I had to do. I had to be working three jobs, and I had to be like working out to like not only working out, but like looking for out for my next meals and where they go. And I'm like, are you happy in any of this? Like, are you living the life that you really want? And not that I disliked my job, because I was a teacher for 10 plus years, and I was with kids. So I was a foster mom as well. I was volunteered with Red Cross and like helping these kids and so on and so forth. So it was something that I definitely loved to do, but was it my true happiness? No, because
Yeah.
of that mentality, because I was stuck there. Even through the therapy, even through everything else, it's kind of so automatic, especially for me, since my trauma started when I was still a kid. It's kind of, what you were giving. So from like that moment to this, it's just a whole different world, to understand that you deserve, first of all, to relax. You deserve
Yeah.
to literally lay in bed all day, and that's being productive.
Yeah.
Like
Rest is so
literally
key.
rest. Like rest. Like you don't have to be working all the time. That's the number one thing. And then from that moment onward, literally everything else, from painting my nails to painting my hair, of course, like it's currently pink at this moment, like all the little things that before would have been like, oh my god, not only the price tag of it, but like, do I deserve it? Do I like need to like if I can like spend it, on bills instead? Now it's like, oh, these are the things. Buying the flowers because I love flowers, buying that perfume because I love smelling good, so on and so forth.
Oh, yeah. Giving ourselves permission to just do the things uh, that are not the obvious survival mechanisms, right? So like the things that are like abundant money, flowers, pleasure, joy, right? Vacations, rest, and really giving ourselves permission to do that. And there's a whole movement of like black girl, or black joy, and it's like we I really resonated with that. I remember seeing it and being like, yeah, like this is so important for, black people specifically, to have this permission, right? Like that they can have joy and they can be seen having that joy, because so much pain has been perpetuated on them and systemic racism, etc. So it's the same that I see, in a different way. We have different kinds of systemic issues that are uh, range because of our color of skin, right? But that we as Latinas can have Latina magic and joy and know that we deserve that and we deserve that rest, and that people of color in specific, but that everyone that has gone through something gives themselves permission for their nervous system to rest, because that's the way it restores and that's the way we heal.
Completely and utterly true. Exactly. All right. So wrapping it up, of course, one of my favorite questions to finish, almost done with all this,
Mm-hmm.
is how would you describe your inner soul right now?
My inner soul, such a good question. My inner soul feels like I'm going to embark on a massive transformation, an initiation, a portal opening. Literally, my vagina is going to be a portal opening for life to come from the merging of my husband and I, but also like the cosmos, spirit, soul. It's just so magical and so mind blowing. I'm constantly like, baby, isn't it weird that I'm going to give birth to a human that we made from scratch? Like, it's just so weird. So I feel like my inner soul is just like on the cusp of this like massive and beautiful, life changing, never going to be the same uh, initiation, transformation.
That's beautiful. I mean, you're almost there. By the time that we're recording this, you're almost there. By the time the episode
Exactly.
comes out, who knows if she's with us,
Exactly.
which we would think she will be. Um, it's beautiful. I love how natural you are. And I mean, I'm very inspired by it. I don't know how to talk sometimes. There comes my bilingualism. Um, I do a lot of podcast episodes and a lot of programs with mothers in general because I appreciate them so much. I'm constantly inspired by them. And coming from a background where, mine in particular wasn't always as present as one would want to, it's one of those like, I'm trying to train myself. Not that you were ever fully trained to be a parent precisely, but like all the tools and
Oh
what
yeah.
seeing you that you're so close to giving birth in this particular, once again, the time of that we're recording this, and you're so calm and fluid and just you have your moments, of course, but all that, just the
Yeah.
fact that, because you put the work in and that spiritual work in that I truly, truly, truly believe in,
Oh
just
yeah.
gives me that like hope and inspiration. And then your daughter is going to be such a golden star full of like sunshine and love and light. Like
For
we just know
sure.
that.
For sure, our spiritual practice, both my and my husband's, and obviously just the work that we've done has allowed us to be in a space where I think we can open up um, to to receiving her and being conscious of knowing what we don't want to do and what we do want to do, and that we're committed to our own personal growth and committed to growing as a parent, doing research, finding out, talking about how we want to be, talking about how we want to handle things, talking about how we want to encourage her, what kind of things we want to share with her, and just preparing and really being blessed financially to be able to pay for support and being able to hire the midwives, hire the doula, go to therapy, buy the things that make us feel secure and safe for her, and then being able to have this mental space to say, okay, I can show up for my work, I can chill, I can stop, we can take a rest if we want, I can keep working when I want, is really important. And I think that, yeah, I am pretty chill. Like, I have had an amazing pregnancy. Every pregnancy is different. And so moms, don't compare your journey to anyone, because they're all beautiful, even if it's hard and difficult, right? Because it's worth it. But mine has been particularly easy. And it doesn't mean that it's easy all the time. Like, obviously now I'm 9 months pregnant. So sleeping is, I'm small, I'm petite. I was 102 pounds when I started this pregnancy. And your body needs to expand to hold space for this beautiful being that's being born. So at night, it's harder to sleep. You're wiggling around, you have 10 more pillows. But my perspective is that hard things are part of the process. And so I don't perceive it as, I know that it'll have an end, right? Like that I'm enjoying every second, and even like the wiggling and the turning. And like, I just have a perspective that allows me to embrace it. And I have support. And that's a big thing. For those that don't have support, it's going to be harder. And that's why I can only speak from my own experience of it. But what I will say is that whether we're birthing our next project or birthing the next version of ourselves or birthing a human or a community in the world, that the more we allow ourselves to love ourselves, to heal, the better those outcomes will be. And so we're constantly in a cycle of death and rebirth. And I'm grateful to be in this new season of entering into the portal of motherhood.
I completely adore that. Once again, excuse the dogs in the background. No
No
one is
worries.
out there
I
with
love
them. And they're barking because the mailman, or who knows, basically. The signs of life and the way of life. I am so blessed and honored to be just here for like a spark of it, just a little behind the scenes of just, just chilling with you and vibing and feeling your love and energy. And now when I go through your book, it's like, oh my God, it's going to be even better, of course. And that is one of the joys, so one of the many, many joys of what I do, because I'm so excited through the background noise and all, because at this point, you just got to roll with it.
In anything, like you just flow. Like even when I have my little nugget and she's crying, I'm just gonna keep flowing because it's life and it's beautiful. It's fine.
Exactly, and I adore that. And I really, 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 I would love for the world to continue being and going towards that direction, because it's like, say, you have to be present in this moment. Is it annoying? Yes, but it's also a dog protecting our house because he thinks that there's
That's
someone
nice.
there,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
they're big dogs on purpose. So it's kind of like you're kind of doing your job. You're not really being annoying. So when you talk to people, I mean, that could be for the baby, for example, or just anything
That's
else in
right. They're doing their
between.
job. We're the ones that have to work on ourselves to like manage our own emotions. Yeah. But
Right,
yes.
right. That's exactly what it is, and just kind of go with that vibe and go with that flow of just being sure that, with everything that you're doing, you're present, and that's like the number one thing. So yeah, definitely the last three questions that I ask everybody, and I'm excited to hear your answers as always, of course. For the third position of the third question out of three is name 3 words to describe you.
Passionate, determined, and soulful.
I can see that completely, especially soulful. Oh my gosh, yes. What are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for a healthy, flowy pregnancy.
That's absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh. First of all, and second of all, and third of all, and all of the above, congratulations. Not only
Thank
for your
you.
book baby, but for your actual baby, for your actual journey. You're
Thank
just a
you.
brand new mom. So congratulations. That's just like the start of that brand new life. And it is very crazy that we can give birth. Like, I agree with you there.
It
It's
is
like,
so
how is this possible? Like,
I don't get it,
and
but it's
like your
magical.
organs move, and you're like, and you're
Everything.
feeling your baby. Oh, I can't wait. I really, really can't wait. Like,
It's
it's just
so cool and alien like and cool.
right.
Yeah.
And last and definitely not least by any stretch, where can we find you? Where can we find your books? Please let us know. I'll definitely, of course, tag you down below as always, but just let us know once more.
So all of the things are on my website, christineg.tv, www.christineg.tv. You can find all my retreats there, my mentorship if you want to launch your own spiritual business, or women's circle training. I have my Diosa retreats, and then of course my book is there. You can buy it wherever books are sold. And if you go to my website, I have free gifts that you get when you buy the book that are really amazing: meditation, a PDF journal that's like over 50 pages. So when you buy the book, whether it's from your local bookstore, Amazon, Target, wherever you buy your book, you can put your receipt on the website. You can also go directly to iamdiosabook.com, and you can see all the places where you can buy it there to make it even easier. and then you get those gifts straight to your email. So make sure you sign up for the newsletter. Follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active, at Cosmic Christine. And I wish you the best. I pray that this book, that this conversation serves you. And I pray that you know that you are worthy, that you are loved, and that you are Diosa.
Completely. Like, congratulations. Cheers. I can vouch for that. I can vouch because I definitely signed up for a newsletter months ago by now, I feel like. And I definitely did the whole put the receipt in, and then it got like the freebies. It's amazing, your journal. I like, the first thing I thought was like, I want to print these out. I want to make sure I'm writing in them. I want to make, like, take my notes, as I'm one of those people who are those, I love writing my feelings out and seeing them, and like manifestation boards and all these sorts of things. So definitely, like, do not sleep by any means on her freebies, because they're definitely worth it. And the fact that they're
Mm-hmm.
freebies, even after the book, like, it comes with such a great kind of boost and reassurance and
Oh yeah.
motivation and stuff like that. So definitely, my goodness. And the fact that you did that just says a lot about who you are and what you're meant to do in this world, because that's just fantastic, without a doubt. Thank you
So
once more. I hope
thank you.
to talk to you soon, of course. And I know you're multicultural and multilingual, so I would love to talk to you also in Spanish, of course. And I know you're gonna bring that sass in Spanish as soon as you can, of course, whenever the baby allows you, as
That's
the
right.
natural flow of life.
That's right.
I'm sure we will definitely get that spur to life
You
from
did
you.
amazing. You're so good at this, and keep rocking it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have an amazing day. Take care.
Exactly. Talk to y'all soon. Bye. Bye, Team
Bye.
Flyer.